And it's crazy because that's where my company came from, was from my hurt inner child. It was the villain part. It was the, I need all the external to prove, because I wanted to feel seen. I wanted to feel heard. So of course I'm going to run this, extremely successful company, but not be happy on the inside, right?
Welcome to another episode of the Limitless Life Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Smith, and if you have not done so, hit that subscribe button so you never miss another podcast. And if you love this podcast and you want some more tips and tricks on how to improve yourself, go ahead and subscribe to my YouTube channel. There are a ton of instructional videos there. You can find the links down below. However, before you go about checking out my YouTube channel, I would like to introduce Arden Schiller.
Hello. Thanks for having me, Kyle.
Absolutely, Arden. How's your day today?
It's so good. This is actually my second podcast today.
Awesome. Well, good thing I got you warmed up. So going into the very first question I like to ask my guests, just so that the listener can get an idea of the intentions of the person that I'm speaking to. How is it that you impact the lives of the people around you?
Oh, what a beautiful question. I'm going to start with a little bit of a story, I feel like. So for so long, I was in business for myself. I was like, I want to build a legacy. I want my children to have a life that's incredible. I want to have a really nice house. I want to be able to provide for my family, which is a very, I feel like, normal answer for a lot of entrepreneurs. And I would say it wasn't until probably about a year ago that shifted. And this is the beauty of like impact, where I actually started to recognize that as much as I want to build a legacy for my life, how important it is to serve the conscious collective. And what I mean by that is it's actually almost a disservice to really only be an entrepreneur for yourself. It's a lot more meaningful and impactful when you start to step into the work of entrepreneurship to actually be a service of others. And I feel like a lot of times people are like, why do you love what you do? And it's like, well, because I like to help others, right? But it's not until you start to recognize that like your whole journey becomes this like, I literally show up and wake up every day at 4:30 in the morning because I actually want to serve others, like, and not just like help them, but like actually like I will literally sacrifice parts of me and my legacy because I'm so passionate about wanting to help others. And what I do and how I do that and impact others is through supporting them with growing their business, because I've had a very, very successful company in the past, and I still do, but it's not as successful as it was because now I've started a second company that is just as successful as my first one. And it's growing to be even more successful. And that comes from this idea of supporting people and meeting people to impact them based off of where they are at. For so long, I felt that I was making a large impact because I was like, this is good. I'm charging high ticket. I'm getting all these people in my world. And then I started recognizing that, high ticket is great. And also I'm leaving out a lot of people who potentially can't afford multiple hundreds a month or even multiple thousands a month to work with me. And so I started creating just multiple offers and other ways that I could meet my audience, meet my clients, meet the people who I want to serve exactly where they're at without them feeling like they're not getting that support. And that's what changed a lot. Like for me, especially, is being able to actually meet people where they're at and serve them in that way. So the way I think I impact people and why it's so beautiful to really step into entrepreneurship is because I've actually created this service that actually, and as much as people say niche down and talk to but I really can meet whoever needs my support exactly where they're at so that they can get that support and be able to grow to the next level and to the next place of needing support.
That's awesome. What a great answer too. I like how you had a good combination of the intention, the why behind it, and then a smooth landing into the how you do that as like a career. That was good. That was a good answer.
Well, thank
It's
you.
like you practiced it or something. Yeah, that's
I
great.
wish I should.
Now you're doing fine. So with that purpose, how is it that you find um the what actually a better way of putting it, how is it that was there a part of your story where you were not where you were at now, right? And there was a mess that overall became your message.
Yeah, that's
What
actually probably my biggest wake up call. It was December 2021. So about a year and a half ago. So I was running a multiple six-figure fitness company online, and it was, I mean, I had 7 assistant coaches. I was pulling in and really working with teachers. I was a kindergarten teacher prior to being an online fitness coach. And it blew up very, very quickly. In just a year, I had my first year was like 250,000. My second year was almost double that. And it was December 2021, and I had just hired my 7th assistant coach. And I remember it was a really nice day in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And as weird as it is, usually it's winter time, but the sun was out. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to go for a run. So I went for a run. There was snow on the ground actually. And it was like mid-December, almost around Christmas time. And I went for this run, and I went to one of my favorite, like, it was like, it's a place in Manayunk. It's a dam. And so I went, and you go to the dam, but the dam wasn't running because it was winter. So you can run out on the dam, which is this concrete surface, I guess. So I run out onto this concrete surface in the middle of like the water, and the water was like kind of frozen, kind of running, because it wasn't that cold yet. And I just remember laying down on this concrete platform in the middle of the water, looking up like at the sun almost. And I had everything. I had the finances, I had the relationship, I had the home, like you name it. Everything in my life was on the outside perfect. And I realized that I hated everything I had, and I wasn't happy. And that was probably like, I have chills thinking about it, because that was the wake up call I needed for actually shifting into what I even said was supporting the conscious collective and not just building this legacy for myself. And I started to realize that the company I had built was about building a company and not a service. It was about making money, getting to the next step, getting to the next level, and not actually caring about the clients. And it was huge. It was like a really big wake up call for me. And I was like, I hate everything I'm doing, because I have this great successful company and it doesn't feel good. And I don't know many people who haven't actually reached that point where then they've been able to actually build a company that feels good, right? Like, most of the people that I've talked to have gotten to this point where they're like, oh my God, I have all this success and I like, I'm not happy. And that's how they were able to then rebuild this beautiful company where they are happy. And I'd say that was like my biggest wake up call to realizing that, like, I was doing things in my business out of lack. And so what I mean by that is, I always felt like I needed more clients. I always felt like I needed to make more money. I needed to hire another person on my team. I needed to get to the next step, next level. And everything in my business was not customer focused. And I think that was the biggest downfall I had. And that's why I laid out there in December 2021 and said to myself, I don't want to do it this way anymore. And so I ended up firing 4 of my assistant coaches, getting rid of probably 30 or 40 clients who were just on auto pay, but not doing anything. So we were probably collecting 10 to 15 grand per month of clients that were getting no support, because they decided just to not answer us, and I didn't care enough to be a human and say, oh, you know what, because they don't want to do the service, I'm going to cancel it, right? I just kept it going on auto pay, and they just kept paying. I took those clients out. I shifted focus on actually pulling in ideal clients and people that I wanted to support. And I regrew my roster. I regrew my assistant coaches rosters. And that is actually probably one of the biggest pivots I made into business coaching as well, because after that moment, I started incorporating lower ticket offers and supporting other people just based off of where they were at in their fitness journey. So not just offering one offer where it was like fitness and nutrition and one-on-one coaching only. Like, no, like if someone was like, I have the fitness down, I need support with nutrition, I was like, you know what? Let's get you support with nutrition and let me meet you where you're at. And I became a lot more flexible. I would text them. I would send them gifts. I would handwritten notes, postcards when I traveled. And I started to just see this shift in not just my clients, but like in my happiness. And that's also when people started seeing that in me too. This was probably around April 2022. So a little over a year ago, and they started messaging me and saying, hey, Arden, like, how are you running this business? That is just, you can tell you're glowing, you're successful, you know, you've rebuilt this company to better than it even was before. And you have these amazing clients. And people saw that and started asking me. And I started kind of just taking on a few business clients. And from there, it kind of just exploded, which would make sense because I was teaching a different way of business, and it wasn't running a business as a business, it was running a business for customer success. And you can see a lot of this in specific, like big corporations, right? Amazon, as much as some people are like the workers don't get treated well, like they have the best customer service I've ever experienced. You can talk to someone at any time. You accidentally ship something to the wrong spot, they say, oh, don't worry about it, I'll just refund you. That you lose a package, they just refund you real quick. I've never had a bad experience with Amazon. And so because of that, guess what I continue to do? Buy shit from Amazon, right? And so there's a lot of companies that are just like so focused on customer success, they don't lose their customers.
Totally. That's
Yeah.
awesome. I really like that. I have a pretty neat question came out of that. And uh, what is this is going to be open-ended. You can take it however you want to go with it.
Okay.
But how does one reinvent themselves when they are at the top of the mountain?
Because the mountain doesn't actually have a peak.
Fair.
I mean, that's what my favorite quote is, striving satisfied. So it's being able to climb the mountain in a way that feels good, and you're at the peak no matter what, right? Like if we're constantly trying to reach a peak, it's exactly what I was doing in my company. Like I felt like, oh, next level. But now I'm just in this place of I'm at the level that I desire to be at, and I can absolutely get to the next level. I'm just still climbing there. Right. And so it's not really complacency, but it's like, like being grateful for what I have and like knowing how amazing I am and what I have to offer. And that's just going to continue to grow.
Nice. During the so yeah, the reinventing yourself from where you were absolutely crushing it and having all of the on paper things that are indicators of happiness. Was it simpler than you anticipated or more difficult than you believed to change things up into something that's more customer service and service based and purposeful and meaningful rather than just awesome numbers, which the numbers are awesome. The numbers should never be discounted. They are awesome. But also in that, because I recognize that for most entrepreneurs, there's two kind of points or three kind of points that I really recognize. And the first point is oftentimes just either by choice or by chance finding themselves on the path of entrepreneurship. It's either by choosing it or someone got fired and they said, screw it. And they wanted to start their own thing, something like that. Right. And then they develop one business where it's focused on developing the skills of business. And once they find themselves at that point, like yourself and your trajectory, then they take those same skills and they level it up to that higher consciousness, that like more broad, wanting to be a positive well, the way that I worded it for my own little mission statement is being a positive contribution to the human race as a high priority value. And from that point of, was it difficult? Like, was there any narratives? Was it simpler? Was it more difficult from where you were to now?
You know what? During that time, I was really lucky because in March 2022, I invested in a mentor who actually really supported with that next level. I was really, really grateful for that. And I'm still working with her. But there was also a point where in October, it was like September, October 2022. So only like 8 months ago, I was on this like high, like from when I started, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm killing it again. Like, and I was on a high, but it was a different type of high. Like it was like not just on paper, it was like both, right? And then I invested in another mentor who I thought would kind of support me in the leadership area, because I still had my team, but I was also really shifting into business coaching. And he practically told me that I shouldn't be a business coach. And I remember that was really hard because I was on a high, I was feeling really good. I felt like my mission, my vision was very, very secure and very stable. And so I couldn't see his perspective as to why he didn't think I should be a business coach. And it still is like sometimes kind of hard for me to understand why he said that. But it was that moment that it like crushed me. I was like, what? Like my clients are seeing a lot of success. Like it just, in my world, it didn't make sense. And honestly, what I looked at is just like, we had different visions of business as well. That was very big. We had different visions. So he didn't agree with like the mini offers or the low ticket offers. He didn't agree to meet your audience where it was at. So potentially even there was just this disconnect of values. And so it was in that moment that I felt crushed and crumbled. And that was about October. So that was like 8 or 9 months ago, if I can math. Yeah.
I'm not too good with math.
No, I like can't do backwards. It's fine. Subtraction as in backwards. I meant subtraction.
Awesome.
But I think that was definitely probably that shifted things. That broke my confidence a lot. And it actually had me questioning why I became a business coach. And because of that, though, I was then able to create an even stronger why a year later from the 2021. So I think there's always those next levels, right? So like kind of like what you said is like climbing that mountain. And so I think I needed to go through someone practically shutting me down, to help me regrow at a higher potential, a higher, like a stronger why, a stronger, more meaningful why. So like but it was in the next thing of my business, right? So in my fitness company, right, December 2021 was like, okay, there's that stronger why, let's move with it. And then I started business coaching and it was like, boom, like all the potential in the world, like courageous, like investing big money in things. And then someone was like, no, you shouldn't be doing this. And he was the first person to tell me it. It was someone I really looked up to and was really inspired by. So of course I'm crushed. So I had to actually go through and like kind of just rebuild that why again. And I think that is so, it's not talked about enough how often entrepreneurs do get shut down and do need to build a thicker and thicker and thicker and thicker and thicker and thicker and thicker skin, because that is literally what I needed. And honestly, like it took like a couple months for me to be like, wait, no, like I am a business coach and I'm really good at what I have to do and what I offer. Yeah. So I'd say that was kind of probably the other, like the hard thing I had to go through in business coaching. But it definitely wasn't like the first time. And I think every time it happens, it does get easier, technically.
That's true, because you get desensitized to the event, right? It's like if you experience it once, but then you think to yourself, if I were to experience it 999 more times, how am I going to feel on that thousandth time? It's going to be like, I'm not going to feel anything because you're so used to it at that point.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
when I'm building up that why and building up personally, I love that you got shut down like that. I
It
think
was
that
so rude.
oh yeah. But it's all I think it's so important too, because this is the thing that I think is important is that I think that if that coach enabled you rather than critiqued you, you wouldn't have been able to figure out what you could do. You still would have been performing at the same baseline that you were used to because you've already you're riding the high of the confidence. And sometimes we just need a little bit of humble pie. And
Yes.
although we may not agree with the critiques, we can also still reflect on it and think of how we can utilize that as a frame of reference for what we are capable of overcoming. And there, in my mind, that there's only the option of persisting and pursuing and progressing after that point, because realistically, like, it's not really fulfilling life if we are if we are putting our validation, if we are depending on external sources for our validation, then those external sources will make the rules rather than us depending on ourselves, where we have the opportunity to be autonomous and make the rules for ourselves.
Love that. I feel like that mentor was an exact lesson or test to make sure that I wasn't living externally anymore. And it was everything I needed in that moment. Like, I totally agree with that. It was like that, okay, a year later, let's see if you actually can push through. And I did. It was hard in the moment. I did not continue to work with him because I was like, this is just not a vibe that I'm feeling. But I quickly rebuilt my confidence faster than the first time, and it was stronger. And I think the coolest part about it was that I actually felt like I had so much more to offer compared to the first time after like going through it. Like this time I was like, oh my God, I'm amazing. Like, right. And it came from, yeah, being knocked down, having to reflect and like start building on those things, kind of like what you said. Totally. So the confidence now is like triple the amount of what it was when I first started, but I also know how much energy, effort, work I've put into it. And something that's so beautiful too is I'm so much more aware during my highs that I'm reflecting in every moment. So while I'm really high, I'm still reflecting.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good because I think reflection is super important in both the really high highs and the really low lows, because neither of them are ever going to last. So when we can reflect in those moments, at least we're being present rather than anticipating of the future or trying to predict things that are just like make believe. Because realistically, the thing that's kind of interesting, this is kind of a cool thought, that there's not really a difference between memories and fantasies. So if we're just if we're conjuring up an image in our mind of the negative things that could possibly happen or the positive things that could possibly happen, that's still fantasizing, but it's the same method of imagery as pulling past memories, whether past pains or past pleasures, into the present. That's cool. That's a neat thought. I'll have to explore that one a little bit more later. But yeah, actually take that thought and roll with it. I want to just fly with it. Whatever popped into your mind there.
I think like this can even lean into like manifestation, right? I mean, if you can imagine it, you can have it. And it's crazy because I've really been into manifestation probably since like 2019. And I remember I actually did, when I first started in the online coaching industry, I did one of my first ever courses was like a manifestation meditation course, right? which is funny because now I feel like it's so much bigger these days. Like 2023 is like mindset coach galore. But in 2019, it was also like something that I was really into. And I took this course, and the guy built a specific manifestation meditation for me. And it talked about how I was going to be living on the beach, walking to the gym every day. I would get Stripe notifications of $10,000 coming in, right? Like all that fun stuff. And I listened to that every single day for like 2 years straight. And I didn't even realize it until after. I was living in San Diego, mile from the beach, walking to the gym every day. That whole meditation became my life in summer 2022.
Mm.
And I remember when I would sit there and I would like eyes closed, meditate and imagine what my place looked like. Imagine it was literally what I was living in San Diego. And I didn't even realize it though until like I was like I was like, oh my God, it was like probably like before I moved back to Philly. I was like, oh my God, like everything I manifested for 2 years, like was all true this summer. And I think it is like that, like, right. Like there's such a positive of being able to say like, I can literally visualize and imagine what I can have. But the thing is too, right, is like you have to fully believe it. And that could be positive or that could be negative. Right. Oh, and I would get those Stripe notifications, $10,000 coming through, right? Like it was so crazy. It was so crazy. And so I think like when it comes to fantasizing versus imagining versus memories versus like, right, like all of these things show you what you can have, because if you can't imagine it, you're not probably going to have it. But if you can imagine it, you could have it. And it's all about if you believe that will happen. I also think there's a beauty of like, this is why they say to surround yourself with people who inspire you and you look up to, because it wasn't until I started spending time with people who were millionaires and multimillionaires that I actually couldn't believe that I would have a $10 million home, right? Like that sounds outrageous. It's even right now when I say it, I'm like, oh, do I actually believe that? Right. But then there's also those places of like, but like I could, because like this person has one. Like what did they do that's different than me? Right. And so like you can actually start to imagine higher level things when you start to step into that higher level too, which is really cool. I hope I kind of answered that.
That was wonderful. I completely, yeah, that was a great question. Uh, or great, that was a great answer. Yeah, just good. I didn't even ask a question in that one. Oh, that's funny. That's really good. No, I absolutely agree with the process of manifestation. And it's kind of interesting because we think manifestation, but people think of it in the sense of more of the idea of just creating something out of like dust, or not even dust, just like imaginary, right? And what it, in my mind, what for my experience, what I recognize of manifestation is not like the law of attraction, but also the law of action, and those being symbiotic. Those are both necessary as a stack, not as one or the other, because if you have the law of attraction, in my mind, that is an indicator that there is clarity, that you understand and you know where you want to go and why you want to do it and why you want to go for it. It could be financial, fitness, fellowship, or fulfillment as my kind of 4 Fs. And when we have clarity on where we want to go, then it's just the action to get there. And a majority of our thoughts, I think it's like 40 to 60% of our thoughts, and I forget exactly what it is. So if you know it, give her. But a majority of our thoughts on a day-to-day basis are habitual. They're repeated, and a majority of them are repeated by us. Like if you look in the mirror and you say, "You're such a piece of shit," and you hear that every day, it's interesting because I don't think people realize that our brain is only interpreting the information that we are providing it. We are feeding it, and we can provide it with nourishing information or starving or malnourishing information. in content as well. You can have nourishing content and whatever, I'm going to find a better word for that, but just not nourishing content. And the thing with that is, if
like disempowering.
disempowering, I like that. Yeah, disempowering content, nourishing content. I like that. Thank you. So when we recognize that the input, as in the things that we're saying to ourselves or the things that we want to perceive, because I like a lot of philosophy stuff. Like, I have a whole bunch of mental mentors, and one of them is a fella named Miyamoto Musashi, and he was a samurai Ronin. He was a samurai first, then a Ronin, back in, I'm not really too sure, maybe the 1400s or somewhere around there. But he differentiated between the observing eye and the perceiving eye. So there is us observing our world around us without judgment and being able to see it as it is, rather than the perceiving eye, where we see it as we believe it to be. And those beliefs are within our control, because our perceptions, our behaviors, and our actions are three things that are completely 100% within our control, to be able to change at least how our body physically responds to the thoughts to which we are feeding the information, the area of information that is articulating the things. Because our brain cannot tell the difference between our thoughts and reality, is a thing that is very important, where even if it's a little slip up, like sometimes I'll be like, oh, I'm pretty dumb sometimes. And then
Boom.
my girlfriend Kendra, she's like, why are you calling yourself dumb? And I'm like, well, I didn't mean it like that. She's like, it doesn't matter. You still said it. So it's still something that's still tracking.
Yeah,
So
exactly. This reminds me a lot. Are you, or have you heard of NLP, neuro linguistic programming?
hell yeah. Great sales. Great sales.
Yeah, it's really, I did a whole course on it. I sent my whole team to do it. My whole fitness team. I think it's great. I think there's definitely parts of it that I don't vibe with, but I do think it's like really good around like explaining exactly what you just explained, and like how we really do feed ourselves exactly what we have. And I even believe that, you know, so I'm coming up, this is actually fun. I have a master class coming up that I think I told you, financially fucked. It's like, I'm so excited for it. And a lot of it is actually not just about like learning how to overcome times that you're feeling in that scarcity energy around finances, but it's actually more on being able to hold the power and know and trust that you're okay. And I also think it's like being able to recognize, to not even like, just not victimize yourself or tell yourself I'm financially, like, because when you get into this place of scarcity, financial scarcity, right? What do you keep saying? Oh my God, I can't spend money on this. Oh my God, I can't do that. And what do? You keep yourself financially stuck because you're so focused on like even little things. Like, I mean, I've been financially fucked so many times, and then it's like, I don't want to buy those vitamins, or I don't want to go out to eat, or like I've been in places where I literally budgeted so hard that I was like, I only have $50 a week on groceries, $50 a week on eating out, and that's it. And like you get into this like such a scarce place, and why the hell are people going to spend money on you if you're treating money that way? So it's even like that part of like the NLP, or the way that you speak to yourself, is like you put yourself and then you victimize yourself. Oh my God, I'm so stressed financially, that you can't get yourself out of it. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Because
And
you're just behaving from a low frequency point. You're not high frequency. You're in a place of scarcity, not a place of abundance. And so figuring out how to flip that switch is very, very important.
very important.
Something else that I wanted to point out that you mentioned, and I think it's, and in my opinion, I consider it a win. It's like a small win. And it's just something that I think is very important to acknowledge when I believe people perceive things as absolutes, or they like to be decisive, or they're, sorry, not decisive, but when, okay, this is all opinion, where
Hold the
there is,
duality here.
It's like a duality, right? Where there's only the duality, but there's never the road in the middle traveled. So something that you said there that I think is very, very important to touch on or bring light to is how you, to actually, now that I'm thinking about it, but when you were chatting with your mentor and your mentor's like, you can't do shit. I know he probably didn't say that, but why not go with it? And then, so that time, and then, oh shoot. Right. So how you speak about that person now comes from a place of compassion, not a place of a judgment. And I truly believe that we cannot be compassionate and judgmental at the same time. And when we are judgmental, oftentimes we're just projecting our perceptions are reflections.
Yeah.
And so what I think is very awesome about what you said is that you look at that, you're not allowing the narrative of that guy said that I couldn't do shit, so I'm not doing shit. And so that would be the individual, or in
Yeah.
this hypothetical case, you would be the person perpetuating past pain into the present, and it's progressing into the future. But instead, you recognized it. And I think that you said it from a place of compassion where you took that lesson. And then also how you said for the NLPQ, yeah, how you don't agree with everything, but you still utilize the things that you do. And that really stuck out to me because I find that there is many folks, just from observation, that won't venture into something that could be a huge contribution to their acts of service and the progress that they wish to make and support the individuals they wish to support, because of a skewed perception of, I will not want to do one part, so I'm not going to do any part. And I think it's of a higher degree of thinking, of mindfulness, of observing the self, in order to take what you know will work and reject what you believe will not. And I think that that is a very high level of emotional maturity.
Thank you. I'm definitely, as I said, I definitely am very big on, as I kind of said, holding the duality, right? It's like there's going to be good and bad of everything. Everything. There's going to be difference of opinions in everything. And so it's like, even like if you, I said this on my podcast earlier, which is so funny, but it's like, even if you ask me like what my favorite color is, right? I'm not going to sit here and say red, and you should wear red too, and you should eat strawberries as well. And right, I'm gonna say I really like the color red. It looks really good on me. Though if you like blueberries and wearing blue, I think you should do that too, right? And it's like more of like a way of speaking towards, this is my opinion and my experience. I also am here to guide you in what might be best for you and your experience, but I'm not going to dictate or force you to have the same experience as me, right? And I think that's like the beauty of coaching too. Like a lot of coaches are dictators, but I also think it's like leadership, right? And also it allows people to find their voice and create their own perspectives and opinions based off of like any specific topic. And so it's like being able to say like, listen, red looks really good on me. You could try it. Like, let me know if you think red looks good on you. Like, but like, is it going to be my, is blue my top choice? No, blue's not really my top choice, but like I'll wear it because it looks good with my eyes, So it's like things like that is like how I always answer questions. But at the same time, like as I said, like holding that duality around like, I'm not going to sit here and say blue is the best and blue is the worst, but I'm going to say blue can be good in this situation for me, and blue isn't really good in this situation for me. But that's discernment, and you learn that through trying new things. And like even going back to the money making things, and even the mentor saying that I'm not going to be a good business coach, things like that, right? Like I think sometimes my biggest fuck ups and my biggest failures created my best money making projects, best ideas, moved me forward so much faster. And also sometimes I think this is holding the duality. Listening to my mentor, even when I don't agree, and taking the answer as the answer and doing it so I can figure it out. That's huge too.
Ooh, actually, can you go into that? Can you say that one more time and elaborate on that? I think that's a really cool. Yeah, that's cool.
Okay, so I'll give you an example. So I was like kind of stressing around business because I was like, I'm not signing many one-on-one clients. And like back in December, January, I was like, what's going on? Like, I just feel like I want to sign a one-on-one client and I haven't in like a month or two. And I remember my mentor was like, Arden, this is probably closer to February. She's like, Arden, you know what I would do? Like, I would launch your mastermind. And I was like, I don't want to launch my mastermind. I would not take it as the answer. Like for months, I was like, no, I'm not launching a mastermind. I'm just going to focus on signing one-on-one clients. All right. I spent like so many months not launching this mastermind. And then all of a sudden, she was like, Arden, you're still stuck. Launch the mastermind. So finally, I was like, F it. I'll take her answer. The answer is the answer. I launched my mastermind last month. And when I say literally because of that, I signed 2 one-on-one clients and I created about 6K in reoccurring income over the next 3 months. I was like, why didn't I just take the answer as the answer back in January? Right. And so it was a beautiful learning experience, right? For me. And this is, but it's those moments of like, sometimes you just have to take it and go with it. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But like 99% of the times, the answer is usually the answer. And we always tend to fight it because we think we know best.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
I also like how you use the word discernment. Honestly, I don't find discernment to be a very common word that gets tossed around often. And I probably can say, like, for the most part, and I don't know why, like, I'm just thinking, like, because there's just some words that pop out,
Yeah.
or perhaps it's just the kind of the reality that I'm in right now that's kind of interesting. But also, if you hear my cat scratching in the background, sorry about that.
I know.
Perfect. So you're the second person or the second time that I heard it in the last 2 weeks. And at first I actually didn't know what the word discernment actually meant. And now I'm like on the fly. I'm so funny. So discernment being able to having the ability to judge well. Such a simple definition. And I honestly I think that people put too much judgment or too much of an emphasis on what they're judging rather than what they're doing, so they can't actually experience discernment. They perceive discernment, but it's not a fully informed observation because it's only one side of the duality. So the ethereal, the conscious, compared to the physical, the tangible. And I think discernment between having the experience between both of those polarities, that's where we find that road down the middle, where not only do we gain experience, but in those experiences, we acquire different skill sets, which in my personal opinion, we get to increase our personal skill tree as characters in this beautiful video game of finite time that we get to experience. And also being able to develop competence, and in that competence, that's where we find confidence. So when it comes to with the experience of that coach telling you what you can't do and you being able to do it, if and or when a client comes up to you, or anyone, I suppose, but let's say a client comes up to you, how do you approach a situation with a client that could be similar differently than you experienced? Or would you kind of go about it the same way?
Well, I would never just tell someone that they're not meant to be a coach.
Yeah, fair
Period.
enough. Yeah, fair.
I would actually challenge them on why they believe are or should be a coach. So instead of saying you shouldn't be, I would say, why do you believe you are, or why should you be? And I would actually support them through stepping into or potentially embodying what they desire to be, right? I think that's so much more beautiful than saying you just can't. It's like saying, like, how can we? Right now, I honestly am someone who sees, and it's probably not the best trait in certain situations, but I see the highest potential in all people. I have extremely high expectations for all people, including myself, and I tend to disappoint a lot myself. But at the same time, it's a good thing because I definitely have learned to just hold people to who they are instead of who I think they should be. But at the same time, see, holding duality. I think there's just a beauty in being able to see someone's potential, because then you can support them through doing so. So if someone came to me and said, listen, like, I want to be a mindset coach, and I felt that they did not have the mindset to be a mindset coach, I would instead say, why do you believe you should be a mindset coach? What are you going to support your clients with? And really lean into that and getting their values. I think this is the most important. Like, what do you value, right? And asking them if they truly believe they step into these values, right? Like honesty, right? Do you believe you're truly honest? If they say yes, right? It's like, okay, but do you believe that you can really support someone with their mindset? And I've had clients who have worked with me for a month and then realized they should not be a mindset coach because of me. And that's not, I didn't say, no, you shouldn't be a mindset coach. I just said, these are the things that we need to focus on if you want to be a mindset coach. So sometimes my business coaching is like not specifically strategy. Sometimes it's actually supporting someone through understanding how to embody the things that they want to do. And that is what builds a business as well. I've had fitness coaches who unfortunately are like very overweight, and they've struggled, like clients, and they've struggled with pulling in clients. And I said, listen, do you believe that you are able to support this client? Because are you able to support, like, you're stuck right now here in your fitness journey. What can you, and I've had fitness clients say, oh my God, I need to hire a fitness coach for myself so that I can unstuck myself to help my clients, right? So it's not about saying you can't coach. It's about saying, what can you do to become a better coach to support your clients, right?
Nice. I like that. I like that. I once again embodying the duality. I think of it as duality, but I like that you have a that you said support there as well, because I think many times even for myself, there's situations where the advice monster wants to come out, and we find ourselves in, if someone's like, can I ask for help? Or is it cool if we get a coffee so I can chat? So immediately, oftentimes, what happens is we find ourselves stirred by the advice monster, and we are doing all the right or the correct things that gets another person to seem heard rather than feel heard. And one thing that I've found as a quick mitigator in order to organize the trajectory, because I like certainty to the best of my ability rather than interpretation. So that just comes down to having more information. And that was a cool sentence. And so what I found is actually understanding that if you are able to ask, do you want solutions or support? Having that differentiator creates so much less resistance into resolving compared to perpetuating an issue. So I like that you support your clients, not just solve the problems for your clients. You're helping them, you're guiding them through a helping hand and through a method of support that they may not have, because it's not enabling, it is empowering. And that is a much smoother process of basically getting people results than any other way. So I thought that was kind of cool.
Well, I think the number one trait of entrepreneurs is finding solutions, and nobody should do it for you. If you have a coach who's doing that for you, then they're not actually coaching because they're literally your problem solver, I guess.
Totally. I like that. Yeah. I heard this not that long ago, but Alex Ramosi had this presentation. Oh yeah, it was a presentation that he was talking on stage, and he was doing his paper thing. It was great. And I really like how he defines learning. And learning is the exact same circumstances, but different behaviors. So that using that as an indicator of learning is really cool. And I think when people are just trying to solve problems, there's also, as a side note, but yeah, we're going to do a side quest on this one, but there's also something that, and this is just a nerdy thing, but there's also something that's known as the Solomon paradox, where Solomon would be renowned for his advice giving, his solution giving. People would go from far and wide to chat with this fella, and his life was in shambles. So he was great at giving advice, and this is the Solomon paradox. We're great at giving advice, but we're really difficult at taking our own.
Exactly. We don't embody what we preach, right?
Exactly. And I think when people come from a place of support rather than a place of solutions, it's from a place of experience and being able to articulate, or not even articulate, but to understand from a place of empathy how to get a person on to the trajectory they wish to be on by helping them understand they already have the keys.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's when you try, it's also like when you try to give a solution, you create a lot of resistance as well. You know what I mean? It's like, think of like kids, right? Like being a teacher, right? Me telling my kids to sit down in their seat over and over and over for the kid who loves to stand on his seat. What's he going to do when I see him standing on a seat and I say, sit down on your seat? He's not going to sit on a seat. It's like, nah, like I love to stand on my seat. So it's like even saying like, hey, like, you know, whatever the kid's name is, instead of saying sit down on your seat, say, even say like, where would you like to sit today? Right. And he gets to make the decision. Am I going to sit on my seat? Am I going to sit on the table? Can I sit on the floor? And then he can make a decision. And honestly, as long as he's sitting, fine. Right. And that's building problem solvers rather than telling. So I think that's beautiful, that paradox. I agree.
Cool. I think it's, oh shoot, I just had a thought that just like was there. It was really good, and it fluttered away for a second there. It's also empowering when, oh, right, here's where I was going to go with that. It's also empowering because when we're able, or when it's coming, or when it's going from a point where you get to offer up the decisions and people feel like they have autonomy. Oh, no, I don't remember it off the top of my head there. But when people feel like they have autonomy over their decisions, then they feel empowered. And that's the thing that I think is like doing that, especially because you mentioned in a school setting. I think broadly, people are told what to think rather than how to think. And then there's a misalignment as we grow up because we are conditioned, or we are domesticated through indoctrination of what is societally accepted. And a buddy of mine, he puts it really well, where we want to go through the process of rewilding. So that kid that was also standing on his chair, it's not that standing on his chair was a bad thing. It's that sometimes there's just a time and place, and being able to empower someone to have the autonomy in order to know how to think rather than what to think. Not standing on chairs is bad, and then anytime I see someone that's standing on a chair, they're bad, because that's not a good place to be. But now we get to rewild and then just kind of flush out a little bit of that domestication, embody our inner child, and be able to think more critically and creatively.
Which is literally the definition of being an entrepreneur. This is also why I genuinely feel that the online industry is so messed up because I think there's so many people coming in as coaches who don't know how to provoke thoughts for others because they don't know how to think themselves. And then they are so against investing in a mentor because it's so expensive and doing the inner work, right? And like, I just, it makes me laugh because I'm like, I get these clients and they're like, I just had such a terrible coach. I just like went through this really awful, and it's like, the beauty of entrepreneurship is being creative. There's so many coaches out there that are like, you have to do it this way. You have to do it my way. Like there's one way to do business. And I'm like, there's a million ways to make $1 million. There's and if you can't sit here and like come up with ideas because your coach is telling you no, don't do that, and you run it. Red flag. Right? And I think the best ideas come from trial and error and failing over and over. As I said, that's how my best money making ideas came. I failed so many times. It's funny. I always forget that I did this. I ran a virtual assistant agency for about 8 months, probably lost 25 grand. Like, it's so funny because I laugh at how much money I made, like in my first few years of business, but like, honestly, I spent it all. Like I've learned, I hate ads. Like I spent so much money on ads, hated them, probably signed like 1 or 2 clients. I bought a whole freaking billboard for $4,000 a month, did that for 6 months. And we got a few leads from that. That was cool. And it was a really cool thing, but I learned, and I don't like billboard, right? I started a whole virtual assistant agency. I was paying someone full-time to train all these VAs. We brought in a ton of VAs, we trained them, and then all of a sudden, like, we could not assign them with any coaches. And so it was just like this, tons of money spent and total failure. But it was beautiful because I learned what I need to put my focus on. I learned how to train other people. And there was so much that came out of it. And I now have an amazing VA for myself. So it's like, why not? Right. I was also able to provide like and support someone who didn't have a job, who like was practically working full time for me for like 8 months. And that's really cool as well. So like
That's
I
very
learned,
cool.
and so much good came out of that.
I like that. I like to think of FAIL as an acronym for a faithful attempt in learning.
Yes. It's beautiful. Beautiful.
That's very cool. Very cool. Do you think that was there anything from, well, reflecting on it or thinking about it, was there anything or a characteristic that you view yourself objectively as an adult towards your child self or your inner child or you as a kiddo that you pulled into this present?
So something that I didn't get a lot of growing up was feeling heard. I definitely had parents who were, I don't want to use the word narcissistic. That's not very nice. But parents who were very into what they did and into themselves. And I love them. They did the best that they could with what they knew. But I was one of those kids that never felt heard. And so my whole life, I was always told to sit down and shut up. Bite your tongue, be quiet, you talk too much. Because all I wanted was to feel heard. And I think the beauty of what I do now is not about making people feel heard, but teaching people how to be okay with not feeling heard and still moving and still making decisions. Because I think the best thing, sorry, my dog keeps shaking. She's just chilling. The best thing I've ever done is like recognize that I don't need to feel heard. And that has really healed inner child Arden to be like, no, you don't have to sit down. You don't have to shut up. You don't have to bite your tongue. The right people will hear you. And if they don't, they're not the right people. And it was like, that's what I gave my inner child. And I think I give that to my clients a lot, is like, I make them understand that it's okay if someone doesn't enter, like if someone says like you shouldn't be a business coach, or if someone says I want to do your program but I really don't want to do your and they're indecisive, and it's like, okay, like I just trust that you're going to make a decision. Or even if like the opinions, right, it's just beautiful because I think that's exactly what I needed. And I never had that growing up, of just being able to like be okay with like not with someone saying no, with someone, shutting me down, with even just people doing their own thing and me not feeling like they see me. Yeah.
I like that. I like that. There's that saying where hurt people, healed people, healed people. And I think that that is that little tidbit of your story of your the book of Arden. Oh, that sounds cool too. It I think that that's a beautiful way to loop it back around. Uh, and that's cool. I really dig that, because I find that oftentimes when people they experience some sort of, and I reflect on it myself as well. Now you got me thinking a little bit more, because I was having similar thoughts earlier today. So I guess it's kind of fresh, but it's cool I think the coolest stories is when someone has a really difficult childhood, or they experience things that maybe, when someone experiences a childhood, actually, this is a better way of putting it. 100 people can experience the exact same trauma, but you have 100 different outcomes. It's kind of like if you're on stage and you were to say, everybody raise your hand if you understand what happiness is. And everyone would raise their hand. But if you go through each individual person and get them to describe and define what happiness is to them, you're going to get thousands of different answers. And the thing that I find in common with folks, or at least, yeah, it's kind of like, well, a crazy, ridiculous version of it is Batman, where his parents died and he went down, instead of a little bit more of a legal route of, trying to defend the city, he goes into a little bit of weird OCD, obsessive compulsive, wanting to dress up as a bat and go wander on into the streets and save lives to prevent the same experience that he had as a child. And I think that so when we get to, or the way that I visualize it is when, or if a little kid recognizes, or even an adult, I suppose, but when there is the recognition or the affirmation from contributing to positively to their progress, to another person's progress, and then you see that shift from what they experienced into accepting it and becoming a full-blown master of their fate rather than a passive observer of their fate, they then become the hero of that story rather than the villain. Because oftentimes a villain is nothing more than a misunderstood life. There's no villain story where anyone is like 100% malicious. And I think that villains are oftentimes, mostly ourselves. We are our biggest villain or our biggest hero. And I think that's really cool that you're able to reflect on your childhood, understand reflect on your childhood, see it as is, not as you perceive it, and then being able to embody that role model that you needed at that time. And it's like a
Yeah.
really beautiful full circle kind of process.
Yeah. And it came from, and it's crazy because that's where my company came from, was from my hurt inner child. It was the villain part. It was I need all the external to prove, because I wanted to feel seen. I wanted to feel heard. So of course I'm going to run this, extremely successful company, but not be happy on the inside. Right. And so when I was able to actually be like, I'm okay to not feel seen, like the difference in how I market, the difference in how I care about people. Like, I'm so much more genuine. I love connection. Like, I'm not going to sit here and pitch myself to every person I talk to like I used to, because I know people see me. Yeah. And it's so much different when you have that, like, that internal closure, I feel like, compared to like, I need everybody to see me, work with me. Like that obsession of needing the external. Yeah.
Nice. That's really cool. You dropped some really good knowledge bombs today. That's fire. You got a good story. I think that it's you're definitely living up to that fulfillment, that purpose that you are intending. You got really good intentions to back that up. You got the behaviors to back it up. You're awesome character. And it's good stuff. It's good that you're around, that you're doing what you're doing, and that I think that you're doing a great service for a lot of folks that, well, yeah, are just meeting up with you at the right times that work with you. It's good.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, no worries. So in saying that, is there anything that hasn't been said that should be said? Or anything that has to be said that hasn't been said yet? That's a better way of putting it. And if not, that's okay too.
I feel like there's a lot, but like I feel like this podcast is going to go another like 3 hours, honestly. So we're going to say no.
Fair enough.
There's
always a part two. There's always a part two.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's totally fine. That's awesome. So I got 2 final questions that I like to end with. And I'll set the scene for the first one. And it's going to be way out there. So it is the end of your days. No content exists. Nothing exists outside of you on your deathbed, surrounded by the people that you care for the most. What is the piece of advice you want to pass on?
Gosh, I almost sound like Nike. I was gonna say just do it. And I was like, nah, like that's too Nike based. Yeah, like I was talking to my friends actually the other day, and I was like, yeah, like if I knew, we were talking about if we saw the future, if we knew when we were gonna die, how would we live our life, right? And there's definitely still parts of me that's like, damn, if I knew I was gonna die in a month, I definitely haven't done everything I wanted to do. But I've lived a very short 27 years. But at the same time, at least I know what I do want to do, and I'm taking the action to put those things in place. So I think that's really what it is. It's not about just doing it, right? You don't want to just like spend all your money so you can't pay rent, or like put yourself in really bad, like potentially outcomes, right? You don't want to get like trapped in Russia or something, but like but like being able to have the idea of the things that you want to do within your life and getting ready to take the action and do it.
Nice. That's awesome. I love it.
Nice.
Fun fact about the Nike slogan is that apparently they got that from a fella that was on the electric chair.
Oh,
Yeah,
well,
those were his final words. He's like, just do it.
he just
that
came
was it.
like that was it. I was him for a minute, you know.
Nice. The second question that I really like, and it's a fun reflection question, and it's one that I played around with for a while. So now I get to ask every guest it, and it's freaking good. So the very best version of you, the very best Arden, is sitting next to you right now, and basically, what piece of advice does the best version of you have for you in this season of your life?
Keep going. It's so simple and it's so basic. I'm sure every single person on your podcast has said that, but it's like about, I used to get frustrated when people would say, just keep going. I remember when I was living in San Diego, I walked past my favorite house, and of course, all the people were sitting outside. So, you know me. I went, hi, like, I just want to introduce myself. I'm Arden. I really love your house. Like, tell me, how did you get this house? What do you do? Like, what's your biggest piece of advice to tell me so that I could get this house or a house like this one day? And the guy came up to me, he was like, oh, I'm an electrician. And he was like, just keep going, keep doing what you're doing. And I was so annoyed. I was like, God, that's the worst advice ever. But now it's like, I get it. I get why he said that, because if you can be in this full alignment of your highest version of yourself and you keep going, you'll continue to reach your highest potential over and over and over. And it's not just going to happen overnight. It can take you hitting that potential for 20 years straight before it breaks through. But if you can keep doing that, you're going to finally start to get the taste of it breaking through. And that's when it breaks through.
Nice. Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. I dig it. I dig it.
Simple, basic. What can I say?
There's no sense in overcomplicating something that's simple. Right? So, folks, that's what I've got for you for today's episode. Where can people find you, Arden?
You can follow me on Instagram at Arden Schiller, like garden killer, but Arden, and then Schiller is Schiller. I don't actually kill gardens.
Fair enough. That's a great way to remember your name, though.
Thanks.
Awesome, folks. Well, if you love today's episode, please do me a favor right now. Take a screenshot, share it on your Instagram stories, and tag me with my handle at DapperDudeKyle, along with at Arden Schiller, aka the Garden Killer. Just joking.
No, don't give me that name.
She's not an actual garden killer. Just joking. That is one of the ways that we grow. And until next time, keep up the kindness. And I hope your day treats you as good as you look.